Hi, welcome to another episode of The Secret Sauciers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Russ.
And we are The Secret
Sauciers.
Sauciers. Today we're very lucky to have a guest. His name is Chuck Cox. Chuck is a Lean Six Sigma guru and has represented huge corporations all over the world. He's lived all over the world. He's lived in India. He's such a wise man. I just love the first time we had lunch together. I just could listen to you all day, just all the lessons you learned and wisdom. So thank you for being on our show. We greatly appreciate it. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into what our show is about. And I think our audience knows what it's about. It's about you sharing what we believe is the secret sauce, which comes from within yourself, those self-realizations that you have to come to make the biggest impact in whatever it is that you do in this world. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I grew up, a great deal of my childhood was spent overseas. My dad was a consultant to the Italian government during Reconstruction, and so I went to a Swiss school and played in the schoolyard speaking Italian and took classes in French, and I did very well in the English class actually. And then after Italy, we moved to Alexandria, Egypt, and my dad worked on the oldest continuously used port in the history of mankind and did the modernization of that, and so I went to the British Boys School there, and subsequently came back to the States. Pretty normal childhood. Moved 26 times before I went to Purdue.
That sounds normal.
And,
Before you went to Purdue.
Yeah, went to Purdue and spent 6 years getting my bachelor's there.
Six.
You don't want to rush these things, you know?
Just thought I was just checking. You said six.
Yeah. Well, I was an engineering co-op student for part of that. So, but that was good. And then right after Purdue, I went overseas. I served for 2 years in India as a technical advisor to small and medium enterprise (SME). Okay. Most people think that SME stands for subject matter expert, but in the United Nations parlance, it stands for small medium enterprise. And I was very interested because the Indian government was trying to figure out ways to industrialize the country, but they needed to prevent people who were migrating to the cities. They needed to keep jobs out in the countryside. And the Hindu culture says that the eldest son gets everything. So you've got all the other sons that are trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now?
What am I going to do next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they put in place a whole bunch of industrial estates, and I was assigned to 2 industrial estates, about 60 different companies, all of them startups. And the problem in India is that you've got an engineer who starts a company, and in those days, if you had a degree, all you had to do between a grant from the central government and a loan from the state government and everybody else, you had to come up with 3%. Everything else was given to you on extremely low interest rates.
Wow.
So as a consequence, you had engineers that started in companies, and they were very good engineers. They had no idea what cost accounting was. So they were shipping product.
Business side.
No business side. Or you had the fellow with the B-commerce degree, and he understood cost accounting, but the technical side, no clue.
Right.
So my job was to come in and try and help them out.
Kind of blend those skill sets.
Yeah.
So was this a skill set that you just evolved into, or was it something that you were passionate about, or it's like
it's
you were there,
you know,
and then you came back there.
Yeah.
And so, what was the trigger inside that really allowed you to be there?
The interesting thing is, you graduate from a world-class research university, and you're young, and you don't know any better, and you think you know everything.
Yes.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks they know everything, send them to India. Yeah. Of the 100 things that you think you know, 50% of those are dead wrong, and there's so much that's dead wrong that you begin to really question the remaining 50%. And so how you look at the world is very, very different coming away from India than going in. And delightful people. It was an unbelievable experience. I spent a big chunk of my time since as a consultant, and I really attributed a lot of my success to what happened in India.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So what happened?
So
in India?
what you're attributing, those lessons you got, that you learned from your time there, how did that change you, and how did that affect outcome in your occupational life? What
Because you
were some
can't
of the
be there
biggest,
without changing.
right? What were
Right,
some of the
yeah.
biggest lessons you learned inside yourself? And feel free, if it's a story, tell us a
Yeah.
story.
You go down into the bazaar and you see a fellow making furniture. And you notice that his saw, he's drawing on the saw. He's cutting. The teeth on the saw are cutting this way. They're not cutting on the downstroke, they're cutting on the upstroke. And you think, you silly guy, don't you know that all saws are supposed to be on the downstroke with the teeth going that way? And then you start talking with the locals who are in small industry, and they say, we can't afford that steel. That steel that's thick enough that the blade doesn't go like that when you do on the downstroke. We can only afford the steel that's really thin, and you can use it in tensile and tension on the upstroke. I never thought about that. It never occurred to me.
Never imagined.
My
it.
assumption was all saws are on the downstroke.
I'm not sure I would even notice that.
50% of everything you assume may not be accurate based on circumstance.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a slight slap to the side of the head. It makes an adjustment necessary
Right.
if you're going to begin to understand. And then you begin to understand, oh, then there's this thing that we assumed is so. Maybe that's not so. And if that's not so, how about this?
So it kind of erodes some of the very foundation that you thought you were standing on.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
And then you have to form a new foundation from which
Yeah.
to have an ideology,
Yeah.
to know who you are, where you are in the world, and
Yeah.
what
Well,
you're trying to do.
it becomes much more fluid in the way we think about how life should be, because going to college, you get married, you have this transition into life is somewhat normal, normal life, the American dream or things.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case around the world.
No, it isn't.
It's not.
It's
the same.
absolutely. There's all sorts of interruptions that we don't normally see here in the United States. Although we have some interruptions here too.
Absolutely.
We do.
Absolutely.
No question about
More
it.
so now than
Yeah.
50 years ago.
Yeah. The interesting thing you see over and over again, India today is now well known for something called frugal engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Frugal engineering means we're going to get the job done, but we're not going to talk about money because there is no budget, so what's the point of having that discussion? Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Honest to God.
Okay, so we're
like
going to
get
get
by
things
with
done
what we
without
have.
money.
We're going to get things done without money, which means we are going to do that. We're going to do clever solutions that cost virtually nothing and are as good as, and in some instances are better than, the kinds of solutions we see in the West.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There's, and this is well known, I mean, you can Google these people online. There's a fellow by the name of Dr. Shetty, S-H-E-T-T-Y, and Google the guy, world famous at this juncture, cardiac surgeon. He does triple or quadruple bypass operations in India, $1,800 all in. That means everything is included, $1,800.
God forbid
okay?
you have a problem, you know
Yeah.
where to go.
But here's the deal. Here's the business model. If you can't afford that, you get the exact same care for nothing as the people who can afford and are paying $1,800. Now his goal by 2020 is to have that down to $800. Now he has an operation that he just started a couple of years back in the Cayman Islands. He has a hospital down there where he does the same cardiac surgery.
Same care.
But he charges an all-in price there of $10,000. Now, if you know anything about cardiac surgery, there are no cardiac surgeries that you can have for $10,000. That maybe just to prepare you for the surgery.
$1,800, I mean.
Yeah.
Just
Another-
the pad and the prep in the hospital here would be $10,000.
You talked about my background in Lean and Six Sigma.
Yes.
Okay. Lean is to eliminate all possible waste.
Waste.
Yep.
in your average industrial manufacturing operation, as it is right now, the chances are your waste is between 25 and 30%. If you're in the manufacturing arena. Average. That's
For any business.
That's almost guaranteed. For any, no, not any business, manufacturing.
Oh, manufacturing.
If you're in a transactional, in other words, you're a financial corporation, a bank, an insurance company, somebody like that, it's somewhere between 60, it could be as high. I had one client was 92%. As we went in, it was 92%. We
Waste?
took waste.
Wow.
92%. Remember the old business of you can be good, fast, or cheap?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they said, oh, now we can be good and fast? Well, in today's modern world, you can be good, fast, cheap, and flexible. And those are the 4 macro measures. Good, fast, cheap, and flexible. Well, how do you get there? Well, the first way you do is you take a process that's got 100 steps and you reduce it to only 12 steps. And you do that over 2 rounds of improvement. Now, if you're not doing the other 88 steps, guess what? You don't have the cost of the other 88 steps.
Right. So I think what you're saying is the point is that in India they've been forced to be lean because
That's right.
there's no fat.
There's no resources.
There are no resources. So they get right to the heart of the matter. And I'll give you another example where you've got a guy who does cataract surgeries. The cataract surgeries, the demand for that is very high in India because the people typically live in a house that have a very small hole over in one side of the roof, and that is where all the cow dung smoke circles and finally gets out. But the women of the house are in that smoke all the time, so they get premature cataracts. Well, this guy's come up with a way. He says, look, I know how to do cataract surgery. He has it set up so they're prepping one person and their head is going to be there. And he's working on this person right here. He finishes that one.
Ford approach.
It's exactly right. He's going back and forth and back and forth. I have a cataract surgeon that did my eyes. He does, on Wednesdays only, he operates, and he usually does 5, maybe at the very most 6 surgeries. This guy probably, on a good day, is going to do 80 surgeries. 80 surgeries in one day.
Wow.
And they work a 5-day, sometimes 6-day week. So he's going back and forth. And everybody says, oh, but what's the outcome? The outcome is within 1/100 of 1% of the best outcomes in the United States.
Amazing.
Now, who do you want working on your eyes? A guy that does it 100 times in a
Oh,
day?
look, we buy cars, right? If you think about it, from the time, I'm dating myself, but time the cars were in the 60s, where there would always be a problem. You had to open the hood, you had to spin the rotor because it wouldn't start.
Right, yeah.
Where today, I mean, cars have become so reliable. And the reason why I mention cars is they're made on an assembly line.
Yep.
They're made by just what you just said, and they've gotten better.
Yep.
Cars have become better.
But they only became better when we abandoned the American model and moved to the Japanese model.
Which was, the whole Deming approach.
Well, the American model was you make 100 cars knowing that 20 of those 100 cars have something wrong with them, and at the end you do all the inspections and you put the ones that don't pass over in a little mini manufacturing operation and they correct those problems. The only problem is the first inspection you only find 11 of the 20. The second inspection you find another 2 or 3 more. Unless you inspect them 5, 6, 7 times.
The whole Kaizen approach.
But the Japanese said, no. We're not going to do any inspection at the end of the line. We're going to carefully understand at the very beginning, every step of the way, what has to be, so that at the end of the line, we expect the person to get in the car, turn on the key, and drive it off the line. There is no inspection at the end.
So you've had all these incredible lessons in your life. And you said it absolutely has affected you. How has it affected you in other ways, socially, or initiatives you've tried to create for yourself?
The one major
in your
takeaway.
Relationships, or
The one major takeaway is there's a bunch of hidden knowledge that the people that I typically am working with fail to be cognizant of. And it's the person who is actually doing the job. There's an assumption that they only know a very narrow scope and that they haven't really looked and understood what the big picture is. And that's a very very difficult view of the world to say that that person who's doing the actual work doesn't understand what's going on.
And you're saying was the general perception?
Yeah, that's the general perception. At General Motors, when I worked there in the 80s, the general perception was check your brains at the door.
And just be a worker unit.
Yeah, just be a worker unit. Just do what you're told. We were trying to reduce the switchover time from right front fenders to left front fenders from 2.5 days to less than a standard UAW coffee break, which is 2/10, 12 minutes. Everybody said, no, you can't do that. Well, we got into it, and it turned out we started off with a team of experts, engineers, die makers, guys that had 30 years in doing this. Now, mind you, this is 7 presses, each with a die in it that weighs as much as a car and is almost as big as a small car, like a Cinquecento, the Fiat that's recently come to the United States. So that group of people was able to bring it from 2.5 days down to about 11.5 hours.
After 30 years of doing something, somebody doing it a certain way.
It was a die.
So
the die makers, the guys that aren't doing it every day, they make the dies. They're not the guys that are actually running the press. So we reconstituted the team, and now the only person left on the team was myself as a facilitator and the leader of the team, and the die maker. The other 5 people were all hourlies, all people that had in 25 years. And those guys came up with some very interesting solutions to the problem. One was a die truck on the back side of the die, so that when you push this die in, you're pushing the old die out the back end. And using their ideas, we moved from 11.5 hours switchover time to 9 minutes, 52 seconds.
Wow. So what you're saying is, if we're to back up to my original question, is that don't
discount the guy doing the work.
Don't judge people for lack of innovation. If you want innovation, incorporate the collective.
Innovation can be found anywhere.
Cast a wide net. Cast a wide. The big thing today is diversity. I couldn't be more in favor of diversity. The Wall Street Journal had a thing on AI yesterday, artificial intelligence yesterday. And what they said was, we are constantly in the problem of having too many male whites on the teams for AI. He says, if you get a much more diverse team, you'll have more conflict. Well, of course you will. But you'll have better AI, substantially better AI.
Because of perspective, because
That's
of
right.
diversity
That's
of
right.
perspective.
Yeah, no one person knows everything.
Well, I
Even
think,
two
I think
people.
we're
You gotta have
changing
more.
as a society.
Not fair, not nearly fast enough. Not nearly fast
I
enough.
agree.
Not nearly fast
I agree,
enough.
but it starts with awareness and perception, and we have the awareness now. Where years ago it wasn't even discussed.
I'm sorry, I have to push back.
Push.
I do not believe we have the awareness. It's only just now that the most progressive teams
But if you look
in
at
the
a
United
lot of the
States-
younger companies, you're basing that on all,
I'm
companies
basing it
still
on what's
run
going
by
on in Silicon Valley, the Googles, the Alphabets, those kinds
Really?
of guys.
So
Yeah. The most progressive companies in the United States are just now coming to this realization, just now. Well, if those are the most progressive, how about the hinterland? It's no.
We're barely on the tip of the iceberg.
Very, 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 just on the very tip.
So as we wrap this up, Chuck, I want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
What's your most successful failure?
My most successful failure was when I ignored going after the diversity element, and that's when it hit me up the side of the head. That I was I was looking at things with too much blinder effect, and I really needed to. And it was a key off of this business of the expert team that we had at GM. Those guys were supposed to know everything. We had to reconstitute the team
In order to accomplish our bigger
to
goal.
accomplish the bigger goal. Exactly right.
Fantastic.
Fascinating.
Fantastic.
So the global economy and diversity is more in the direction we need to travel.
Yeah.
Well, look at, for a sustained economy, you have to have a fecundity rate, a fertility rate of 2.1. 2.1. Do you know where the United States is today? And has been it's been declining
Right.
for the last 30 years. 30 years we've been declining. It's at 1.73. Okay? Now, there's only two solutions to this. It's very straightforward. You can encourage all the women who can have babies to have a heck of a lot more babies. I'm serious. I am serious as a heart attack here. If we expect our economy to continue to grow at the rate it's been growing, and we're quite comfortable with this, we're very comfortable with this. If we expect to continue to be comfortable with this, then we need to have more folks in this economy. Either you're going to have to birth them right here,
Unfortunately, though,
Or
there's
bring 'em in.
or bring them in.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
population control experts might differ, I would imagine,
Look at
because then it
what's
puts pressure on other needs for other resources.
Look at what happened to China with the one child only.
Yeah.
Those guys are in a world of hurt now.
Yeah.
And remember frugal innovation in India? They came up with an ultrasound machine that was portable. They could take it to the villages. Now they know the sex of the baby before it's born. Unfortunately, they had an ability now to change and do abortions if it wasn't a boy.
Oh.
Same thing has happened using technology in India has happened in China using policy.
Which kind of is counter to growth.
That's right. Not
You
kinda,
won't.
it is counter to
It is
growth.
counter to growth.
Wow. Well,
So,
Chuck,
thank you so much. This is
can't
very
thank you
insightful.
enough.
You're welcome.
I could listen to you all day. As I mentioned in the beginning,
Yes.
I mean, just your life stories are just truly incredible. And thank you for sharing your wisdom today with our audience. You know, the whole point is everybody has a different story, a different perspective. Some talk about so much personal stuff, and some are always relating the personal experience through stories and work,
Yeah.
like you did today, which is so great. So how could people, if they want to get in touch with you to bring you into their business to get rid of waste, how would they get in touch with you?
Send me an email.
So what's your email address?
Email address is, I'll say it first, peaklean6sigma@gmail.com. Peak is P-E-A-K, lean is L-E-A-N, the number 6, sigma is S-I-G-M-A @gmail.com.
Awesome. If you're looking to eliminate waste in your company, this is obviously a good person to go to. And Russ, how would people get in touch with you?
Russ at Adora Creative. Simple.
There
Very
you go.
simple.
And I'm Andrew Kolikoff, Kolikoff. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIner. My email is andrew@kolikoff.com. We thank you so much for listening. Please tune in again, and please share this show with others that you think might get some value out of it. So thank you very much, and have a great day. Hi, I'm Andrew.
I'm Russ.
And we are
The Secret Sauce
in
CAs.
5 minutes.
We're here to bring you valuable
Oh.
information that can help you move your life forward.
And your business forward. And those
I didn't
realizations
see
that, I was like, we're sharing that with you through our interviews with executives. So please tune in.
Subscribe to the channel and join us weekly.
Thank you.